Hey everybody, welcome back. So I'm Deb Karpman, your host, and if you've been following my channel, you've probably come here for drawing and art tutorials. If you're new here, welcome. Today we're starting a new series called Art Career Conversations, and the goal of this series is to discuss what can you do with a career in the arts, a question that comes up for artists all the time, and to answer questions about how artists can get their work out there, what do city arts organizations do when it comes to art and culture, and much, much more. So our hope is that by doing this, we'll share the many ways that people can have fulfilling art careers, answer your questions. And doing this, I was thinking back to my own career and all the ways that all the things that I've learned over the years that I just think back and I didn't know way back early in my career, and I didn't really know who to ask. So hopefully this will provide you some interesting information that can help you in your own career. With that said, if there are questions that you have, areas that you'd like to have covered, please put them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. This way you'll be able to find your way back to the channel. And so with that, I'm very thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Kleven, who is our first guest. Jennifer is Deputy Director of Cultural Affairs for the City of Las Vegas. Before that, she served for 13 years at the Neon Museum in Las Vegas in various roles, including Director of Advancement. She's been president of the Nevada Museums Association and is currently president of the Southern Nevada Arts Coalition. She herself is also a practicing visual artist and an independent curator. So welcome to the show, Jennifer. So maybe you can start by just telling us a little bit about your career path and how you've arrived at the current role that you're in.
I'm going to take you guys back to when I was in college. I went to UNLV and I graduated from there in 2009 with a BFA in studio art and a BA in art history. I think when I started off in the arts, I was thinking that I would work at a gallery or a museum. So I was really focused on the art history. When I was in my art history classes, one of the requirements was to take a studio class, which got me back into making artwork. So my first studio class in college was photography. I did photography all throughout high school as well. So it was kind of a natural way for me to get back into it. And then the community of artists that I worked with was so wonderful. I decided to get 2 degrees. I had 6 years. So I got my undergrads in 6 years. And I had a really great time, not just making artwork and learning why I was making the artwork, but organizing gallery exhibits. I was very focused on exhibiting artwork, not just my own, but really conceptualizing what exhibitions could look like. So after I graduated in 2009, which was the peak of the recession, a really difficult time to get into a career field, I moved back home with my parents, and then I opened a very small gallery in Las Vegas. And I did that after I worked as a volunteer at the Contemporary Arts Center where Deb had her exhibit. And I think that really helped me doing that volunteer work. It really helped me understand what kind of mission an organization has, and then how do you fulfill it through exhibitions. And I was volunteering on the exhibition subcommittee, so I really got to help look at proposals, read through them, identify where they would best fit in a schedule of exhibitions, and then work directly with the artist for shipping, graphic design, setting up times for things like receptions or artist talks. And I really love that organizational aspect, so kind of like administrative work. After I did that volunteer stint with the Contemporary Arts Center, I opened up my own tiny gallery. It really was tiny. When I say tiny, it was only 74 square feet in an old space called Emergency Arts, which a group in town had kind of converted this old medical facility into an art space. So all of these kind of micro galleries that once served as patient rooms or exam rooms. So it was a great time to be in Las Vegas. That was in 2012. I opened that because there was a lot of opportunity and rents were still really inexpensive. So I met a lot of other curators when I had that space. I got to curate, really what I wanted to see and what I was learning from the community that they wanted to see. And it was a great way for me to stay connected with my college friends who are also all artists. So I I've always really loved being able to give the platform to artists to succeed. So that gallery was my first step in doing that. While at the gallery, I was able to obtain a job at the Neon Museum. I first volunteered there, and I always like to tell people, if you want to work somewhere, especially in the arts, it's a good idea to volunteer. That that really helped the leadership there understand what my capacity was. And then I could apply, when they had other jobs that were available, they would encourage me to apply. So by 2011, I had a full-time job there, and I was trying to balance the gallery and have my full-time job. And one of them had to give, it ended up being the gallery. So after about 2.5 years, I let the gallery go so I could work full-time at the museum. And from there, I really learned a lot about why do people go to museums? What's the purpose? How do we engage with the community? Because ultimately museums are telling community stories. So we're just the platform. We're not the gatekeepers of it. So 13 years, I really got to do everything. The museum only opened in 2012. So I was part of the team that got to really plan all of the opening events, think about the different types of tours, think about operations. And I naturally am somebody that likes operations. I like to schedule things. I like to interview. I like to know what the marketing plans are. So throughout my 13 years there, I really got to do a variety. I was an admin assistant. I was the office manager. I dealt with memberships. I dealt with our CRM system, our ticketing system. And then towards the end of my career, I started doing grant writing and working directly with donors to advance the mission of the museum through fundraising efforts. So my final 2.5 years there, I did oversee the fundraising division. And so that included membership, grants, individual giving, and events. And it was a great time to be there because the growth of the museum was really awesome to see. And in my last 2.5 years, I really got to see it go from serving X amount of people, which is usually about 150,000 people a year, to being even more. I also got to help out on an exhibition in 2019 that we did with Tim Burton. And it was really incredible just to be around an artist who's looking at objects and interpreting them. And while I was at the Neon Museum, we also launched an artist residency program. And it really helped me, again, still feel connected with the arts. I think one of my big passions is actually working with artists, learning from artists. So having them come in, look at the exhibit and interpret what that could mean, do research on it, and then present it to the public. And I always used to see the public's eyes just like kind of light up because they were learning something different. You can go in and learn the history of something, which is pretty documented, but interpreting that history is going to be different for each person. And I think that's what I was always excited about. In 2014, the position here at the City of Las Vegas opened for Deputy Director of Cultural Affairs. And I'll tell you what, like, if I could envision in college my dream job, it was this. It was this because I was going to be able to work with so many different types of artists, not just visual artists, but performing artists, musicians, dancers, and really allowing them freedom to create and craft and bring people together through art. And so I took a chance, applied for the role, and landed where I am today. And I'm really fortunate to have this job, and I'm really lucky to work for a city that puts a lot of emphasis on cultural affairs and knows the value behind it. They really understand the value of supporting artists, but also how that connects the community to where they live.
How can artists think about these kinds of entities in terms of figuring out how they can get, opportunities and things like that? Like, what do you wish artists knew that maybe they don't always know?
I know, coming out of college, it's really scary to talk to people who are new, and maybe scary to talk to people that you think of as these professionals. But that's something that's really important if you want to be an artist. And if you want to be an artist that sells your work or exhibits your work, you do have to work up some courage to talk to people. So I like to always tell folks what's most important is that you're present. If you want to be an artist at the City of Las Vegas and you want to show your artwork with us, or you want us to purchase it, or you want to be a public art artist, my expectation is that I'm seeing you at events, that you're coming to all of our receptions that are free and open to the public, that you're applying for things, that you're asking questions. And I would say the same as for a gallery. If you want to exhibit at a certain gallery, I think that was my expectation when I owned the galleries, that you would attend a lot of my exhibits, you would talk to me. I somebody said this recently, and I thought it was so smart. Like, I want to exhibit artwork from people that I know are trustworthy and that they align with my mission. And so being present and being there is so important. I think there's this negative connotation with the term networking. So I never think about it as networking. I think about it as connecting. And those connections are what's going to help you kind of maybe break in. When it comes to a museum, talk to the curators, go to the exhibits, talk to the people that work there. And I think you'll get a better understanding of maybe what they're looking for in an artist. And it never hurts to put a proposal together. That doesn't mean that you're going to be awarded that exhibition or that art piece or award, but it does help you practice. And I think putting together like proposals is something that's so important if you want to be, especially like a public art artist, you need to be able to say, this is what I want to do, and this is the budget, and this is my time frame. So it just helps you practice your project management for your own art.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think back to my own career, and in terms of exhibitions, I would say 50% was probably just through networking, right? Like, just you get kind of embedded in the art scene of your city, and then one thing leads to another, and you know someone who's a curator or works as an academic, and that's such a good way. And what are things that maybe you wish, thinking back, you wish you had known when you were starting out that we haven't talked about so far?
Mm. I I really wish I would have known how to interview for a job. That's something when I was coming out of college, it's not something that, especially when you're working in visual art, no one's really preparing you for that. They may be preparing you to put your portfolio together, but not like how to talk about business or how to really sell yourself as the right candidate for a job. I wish I knew that. I wish I knew how to put together a better resume for jobs, not a CV for exhibitions. And so I think that there's that balance. I think coming out of a BFA program, the expectation is you're going to be an artist. But for so many folks that came out of my cohort, not everyone are artists. A lot of folks are arts administrators. And so we missed out on that opportunity to develop that skill. And I'm a nerd, so I really love budgeting, and I love to like read grants and read narratives. And that really helps me understand my own purpose when I'm writing a grant. So I wish that there was maybe a class like that. And I will say I graduated in 2009. So maybe there are classes like that now. There just there weren't classes like that when I was in college.
Right. Or if it's being touched on, it seems to be kind of lightly touched on or not at all. Yeah.
Exactly. It was just like there are grants available.
Yeah.
Now on to the next
Right.
thing. And it was like,
You
well,
could
how do I
apply for
start
them,
to do
but
that?
you might not know how. Yeah. So
Yes.
what, in terms of grants, what are, now, especially working in a city, what are things that artists should know, or maybe what are like the common pitfalls that you wish people understood a little bit better?
Definitely putting together a proposal and maybe like this is something small, but sizing your work appropriately when you're submitting some artwork. Um, when people are putting together a proposal and it includes, either their CV or parts of their resume, like those are always really good things because that gives your viewer or your potential um your potential working entity a way to look at some of your previous history. And I'll say like that's something that does matter to us. We want to make sure that we're working with somebody who's able to complete a job. And so having some of that information in a proposal is important. Um, I would say one of the things that I did when I first got into grant writing is look at awarded grants. And those are available if you're I guess it's not on the National Endowment for the Arts page, but there are available grants to read on the National Endowment for Humanities and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So they post some awarded grants on there. I think they redact sensitive information, but I wanted to read a grant that was awarded $200,000. That's the only way that I could start to understand what is a grant reviewer looking for. And so I would encourage people to look through those and look through other proposals. And if you want to be a public art artist, oftentimes at each community across the US, they could have virtual presentations. Those virtual presentations may be recorded. So I would look at those if possible, and maybe even their arts commission recordings. If there's an arts commission in that community, look through those video recordings or their minutes. Because that gives you an idea of kind of the perspective of each of the commissioners or board members who are making decisions.
That's great. And so my last question is just to tell us a little bit about what you are doing now and some of the projects that you're working on, maybe your favorite project that you've done recently or in the past, just to give a sense of, some of the things that that you're doing in your new role.
So one that I just came in at the right time, I'll tell you that. With the city of Las Vegas, we had a couple of new facilities that were opening that my team was going to be able to program. So we have a beautiful outdoor stage in a new downtown government building called Civic Center. We have this outdoor plaza with green space and beautiful large trees and this big stage. We're going to have 2 permanent public art pieces in here. One of them is getting ready to be unveiled January 8th. So that's been amazing because I've been able to be just involved in it the whole way. I could see the artists present their work, their concept, and then have it voted on by the Arts Commission, and then really now see it all the way through the completion of it and the dedication. So it's great because our councilwoman for this ward and our mayor are going to speak at the event. And so that's always really exciting because it really shows how important public art is to our elected officials as well. We'll have another really large piece that goes in the center of this plaza that'll be installed in the probably the spring of 26. So lots of fun things are happening here. We've already done 3 different festivals in this space. We've had many concerts, and I think it's exciting for me to see how useful this space is, not just for our own programming, but the community can come in and really activate it as well. So that's been wonderful to see. I'm also in this new Civic Center space, we have a brand new gallery, and that gallery is dedicated as a gallery. So for many folks who probably work in the art field within cities, sometimes our galleries are spaces that are more like corridors or hallways that are going from one office to another, but they want some artwork, so they designate it as a gallery. Well, this space is its own separate private space with a door that is the Civic Center Art Gallery. And right now we have an exhibit from the Las Vegas Museum of Art, which should be open in Las Vegas in 2029. They are working with LACMA out of LA. The exhibit we have on display is from the LACMA collections. It's called Family Album is the exhibition, and it features work from artists like Tony Coates and John Ireland. And it's really exciting for me every day that I'm here. I get to go in there and look at one art piece and really center myself. I wouldn't say that I have the time to go in there every day, but I like to try to stop into that gallery weekly so I can reset my intention and also reminds myself, like, this is what I get to do. It's so exciting. And then when I get to see people who have never been to a gallery, like their first time in an art gallery, and it's at one of ours, it's really meaningful because I grew up in this community. I didn't have access to art. There was no art museum. The first time I ever saw art was when I was at UNLV, when I was getting my undergrad. So it's not part of the vernacular here. Like my family wasn't going out to art galleries or museums. We were going to soccer classes or soccer practice. So it's great to see that. We got the Civic Center space opening. We are getting ready to take over a former library space on the historic west side. And we're going to convert that into a brand new art center. So it'll take one of our smaller art centers and it'll triple it in size. So we'll have more classes for dance, We'll have a brand new black box theater. We'll have a brand new, well, it won't be a brand new theater, but we're taking over a theater. So there's just so many great things that we get to do here, great ways to present art. And then lastly, I'm working directly with some curators on an exhibition that'll be our next one in the Civic Center Gallery called Rhythm and Resilience, Black Vegas. And it's going to be the history of really African Americans and Black folks in Las Vegas and how they moved from migration to really, celebrating what their achievements have been in Las Vegas and how they're continuing to move forward today. We're working with great curators. Carmen Beals, she is an associate curator at the Nevada Museum of Art. She's also one of our arts commissioners. And then Clay T. White, who is the director of the Oral History Project at UNLV. So that exhibition will come online. It'll open March 13th. And it's been really my biggest joy working here because it's been my first project when I started 18 months ago until now. And so I'll get to actually see it come to fruition in March. And it's gone really, really well. And we're already figuring out a way to tour it across different exhibition spaces. Fortunate, we may not have a really dense gallery scene in Las Vegas, but where we're missing those galleries, the city of Las Vegas, the city of Henderson, Clark County, all these municipal spaces have dedicated galleries. And then we have a wonderful library district who has gallery spaces at all of their libraries. So I always encourage people, in your own community, look to a community center or a library or a government center to look at artwork.
So I'm so grateful, Jennifer, that you joined us for this talk. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. So again, don't forget to subscribe so that you can get, and that's it for today. And thank you again for joining.